Germany, Leipzig taking on at Manchester City. This time finished one apiece. You wouldn't have thought that after the first half. City completely dominated this game. Leipzig really forgot to turn up until after the break, where they were much improved, deserving the equaliser. So it'll be 1-1 going into that second leg in Manchester. Before we talk about the game in general, drama at the end where it looked clearly a handball against Leipzig. This was pretty much the last action of the whole match, and basically the officials said, I want to go home. I can't be bothered with any of this. Let's get out of here. It's crazy.
It was Henriks, the substitute right back, who actually played very well, but decided he was going to, thought he'd come on as a goalie. Same as Souček in the West Ham.
But it was that move, it was.
Yeah, I mean, it was an instinct from him, and all the City players. We believe it was checked, but there's some conflicting reports that it wasn't checked.
Yeah.
But the giveaway is all the City players, claiming for it. Now, that's not to say it's a penalty when players do that.
Yeah.
But they saw it, and he's basically saved it.
Yes. Yeah, completely. Like, you see the replay and you think, well, how?
Rarely, nowadays, with a handball, we have a clear look that says, you know what, that is without a doubt a handball because of the interpretations that we now have on the laws of the game. There was nothing to interpret here. He literally made a move with his hands towards the ball like a goalkeeper, almost as if saving the ball off of his face so that it doesn't hit him. It is clearly a handball, clearly a penalty. I don't know how this goes either unchecked, and even if it was checked, how they don't say, excuse me, we may have an issue here. Come on now.
Mr. LeBoeuf?
Well, yeah, that's getting insane. A VAR has been created to avoid those kind of mistakes from referees. And yesterday we had mistakes from a referee, in my point of view, with Liverpool, just before a possible 3-3, before the disaster. Today, is that the last minute? I mean, again, it can be okay if it's let's say a so-called low-grade division where you don't have even the VAR, and that's all right. We are talking about Champions League, guys, referees, wake up! Or don't leave the booth before the end of the game, because that's not fair for even us watching the game. Say, what's going wrong with the guys? What are they doing now? That's insane. Again, I don't understand. I don't know. I know another guy who's going to retire or resign, because he doesn't do his job. Well, I don't know, maybe.
It was right at the end of the game, which, some would say, well, give them an out, but the ball went out, I think, for a throw-in, and he blew for full time.
Yeah.
He could have. I was expecting him just to blow and put the hand out and then do the usual.
Yeah.
And a quick check, 15 seconds would have wrapped that up,
yes,
by the looks of those. And then, but as Frank said, Premier League, Bundesliga, La Liga, League on, Champions League, you can't go anywhere.
When you get humans involved, that all goes wrong. Yeah, referees. Right, away from that incident, this wasn't the most...
Want any cliches about game of two halves?
you could. First half, there was just one team in it, but it was boring.
Mm-hmm. First half was a parade. RB Leipzig were so bad in the first half in terms of their ball retention. One, they couldn't get it off City, and two, they couldn't retain it in the few times they did have it. That being said, City's goal came from a mistake. Good goal, but it came from a mistake. But there's not a lot else happening, is there?
No.
I mean, there's a lot of possession. Grealish holding the left-hand side, Kyle Walker pushing up on the right, Mahrez floating around, Bernardo Silva floating around doing a great little job. But there's no peppering the goal. There's a lot of possession, but there's no peppering the goal. There's no feeding Haaland, and it got worse in the second half for Erling Haaland. We talk about this every week, don't we?
We do. It's a recurring theme.
I mean, he'll love his goals. If Erling Haaland plays in a game like this, and the one at Forest, and he walks off and he's got a goal or two, he ain't really caring about whether he got slipped in 6 times. But when he's not getting any chances, and he's not getting any build-up play, and he looked frustrated. He walked off a couple of times.
Yes.
Just like, I'm not making any more runs.
No, because they just weren't finding him.
No, it's not even that they're not finding him, Dan. It's that they're not even looking for him. Erling Haaland is playing off the shoulder of defenders for one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to try to time the run perfectly so that he can exploit the spacing behind. And there were several times in which he times that run well, he gets in behind, and Gundogan, who has the ball at his feet, says, No, I don't think so. We're going to go sideways, or we're going to go back and sideways again and backwards again. As a striker, and I can only give you the perspective of a striker. I don't know about center back. I don't know about central midfielder. But as a striker, the only purpose as to why I'm making a run in behind is because I want to exploit that space, because I want you to play me the ball. Now, a secondary consequence of me making the run is to make space for somebody else. But first and foremost, I am saying I'm timing the run well, so you play me the ball in behind. If I make that run 4 or 5 times and you don't play me that ball, at some point I say, well, I don't even know if it's coming. And if it's not coming, I'm not making the run. And now, which I think it gets overlooked when we talk about Manchester City. It's not only what Erling Haaland does in making that running behind for himself, potentially, but what he does for the space underneath. Because in making the running behind, if you play in the ball several times, it actually creates a space because you push that back line. And so now all the little playmakers that wants to get on the ball, all the guys in the space underneath that want to rotate their possession, they'll have more space to play. Play them the ball. Play Erling Haaland the ball. I've been saying this for weeks. I'm with you, Craig. Any time that Manchester City plays, it feels like we have the same conversation.
Frank, would you like to join in the same conversation?
Oh, yes, I would love to, because I think the guy at some point is going to be fed up. He's fine now. He doesn't even complain about it. But I think at some point he's going to be frustrated. And he has the right to be frustrated because, as Ali said, they not even look for him. He's maybe the third choice. They first look for Grealish or Mahrez because it's how they get used to that. For years, they play without a striker. They went around, they play handball, because it's German, and they don't try to look for Haaland. So therefore, the guy can make any run he wants. They don't even see him. At some point, that's Guardiola's system. Which forces the others to not use Haaland. So if you hire Haaland, that should be a purpose, and he should be served in the right amount of time. Because at some point he's going to say, well, I want to play football, please. I just only want to play the action. He's a little bit responsible also for that. Because at some point he should go, maybe come back and ask for the ball. He's a young guy, like Ibrahimovic was able to do so.
He did do that against Man United in particular, did a little bit against Tottenham. Both those games were defeats, where he was on the periphery of the game, not so much through his own fault. If memory serves me right, he got one pass that put him through from Grealish.
Yeah, that was the one that he scuffed wide. Yeah.
He got a run on Guardiola, but he was a little wide, difficult chance. Can't remember any others.
No.
And then on top of that, okay, you think, right, well, big 6'5", whatever he is, strapping centre forward then. So how many crosses did they put in? If they're not slipping them down the channels, between the centre half and full back, how many crosses did they get in? They must have got a few crosses in then.
Yeah.
No, none of them either. So it's all very well playing this way. I mean, look, maybe they'll win the Premier League and the Champions League doing this. Maybe he'll pop up and all the frustrations will be gone. But it's difficult to see how they're more effective, basically negating one of the best talents.
Yeah.
It's okay playing that way when you've got a De Bruyne, and they did it last year. Previous to that, they did play a lot of balls through for Aguero, and that's how he got as many goals. But they stopped doing it. It's almost like they get into a way of playing between Aguero and Haaland. They get into this way of playing with somebody who was a dropping in. It might have been Foden, might have been De Bruyne, might have been Mahrez, might have been Sterling. And it seems like they're just continuing with this same way of playing, yet they've got one of the best strikers on the planet. Think about Dortmund. OK, people might say, well, teams squeezed higher against Dortmund. Possibly. But look back at a lot of his goals in Germany. The ball's going over his shoulder and he's bundling defenders out the way and he's flying in behind one-on-one. You're not seeing too many goals like that this season. You've seen a lot of goals.
Certainly not lately.
But not lately.
But the best evidence of that is the match against Arsenal, in which Manchester City were forced to play the ball long because of the high pressure of Arsenal. And it was Erling Haaland that was manhandling Gabriel, throwing him on the ground. Get off me. Get off me. You can't stay with me. And if you see that, I don't quite understand. See, as a player, I would think that would resolve an issue for me. If I'm a central midfielder or I'm a center back and I'm in some sort of pressure, I'll play this guy down the channel. it's an easy outlet. It should be a basic decision to say, all right, we're in trouble here, but I know that guy can resolve an issue for me. I'll put it over the top and let him fight for it. Manchester City don't want to play that way, but you're not utilizing the strength of a player who can be dominant.
Sorry, just briefly.
Done.
Before we go to Frank, there's no argument against Leipzig were too deep and that's why we couldn't do it, because the second half they were not. The second half, Marco Rosa had basically gave them a dressing down at half-time. They had 3 and 4 pressing and they were asking City to try and play out. So the 2 centre-backs were basically on the halfway line, and yet we still didn't see it. Look, it's not a disaster. Away from home, 1-1. But I tell you what, if I'm RB Leipzig and I saw how I played in the second half and I saw the chances City were trying to take and the fact that they created, not only scored, but created a couple of extra chances, this game is far from dead. Not with the Man City we're seeing this season.
Go on, Frank.
Yeah, very quick comment. I want to know, because there are so many press conferences, nowadays, why any media, why any journalists ask Guardiola, because we are talking but we don't have the answer, why your players are trying to avoid Haaland. Maybe we'll have an answer. Maybe we'll know who's responsible for that. Maybe Guardiola say, I don't know why they do that. I don't know why they don't try to get long balls. I doubt about it. I'm pretty sure the only responsible is him because of his system, because he wants to go around, he wants to keep the possession, he doesn't want to take any risk of losing the ball. But ask him the question, guys. That's your job. Ask him the question. We want to know.
He doesn't like subs either, does he?
No subs. No subs.
I mean, they might as well sat in the dressing room with their suit on.
Yes.
And then just wait for somebody, in case somebody gets injured.
It's common, though, with him. He very rarely makes substitutes.
I mean, I know his bench, for Man City, his bench actually wasn't as strong today.
Right.
But there was still the likes of Julian Alvarez and Phil Foden. Maybe just at the end for 10 minutes up front, one of them just to do something different? No.
Leipzig, of course, came out, rallied much better. If you say a higher press in the second half, Vardiol getting the equaliser. Was it a foul on Ruben Diaz, the hands on the shoulder?
No, I don't think so. Not at all. Vardiol, he jumps ahead of Ruben Diaz. He times his jump and explodes off the ground, while Ruben Diaz simply misjudges the flight of the ball. It's slow to the jump. By the time he tries to get off, Vardiol is all over him. And Vardiol is not utilizing Ruben Diaz to jump. He was already up.
His hands are still on him, though, aren't they?
Do you not hear the part in which I just said to you that he did not use Ruben Diaz to jump? He was already up there.
How can I jump if he's got his shoulders there? Oh, hands on my shoulders.
Well, how can you jump? That's a different question. As for Ruben Diaz, he was late to begin with.
Right.
He was never getting...
That negates any contact.
Yes, he was late to the jump, and Vardiol was already to the point to where Ruben Diaz was never going to get there to begin with. So I don't see that as a foul at all. And looking for a reason, it's only trying to make an excuse for Manchester City.
Fortunately, you'll never be in that position of defending on the 6-yard line.
No, that's very true, yeah.
Marking a centre-half on the 6-yard line.
Do you agree with Ali?
Yes, he got up really early, and part of the arms was a consequence of Diaz not basically getting off the floor. Yeah. So no problem with the goal.
Frank?
No, I agree with the guys. I call it a clever jump, where you jump before, you stay up. If the guy wants to jump, stay down. It's too late. You cannot do anything. Clever jump. Well done, Mr. Guardiola.
Well done. There we go. As you say now, the second leg isn't a formality, is it? Especially with City this season. I know home advantage, or they're great in the Champions League, but you still think, I do not trust this City team at all.
No, and it was like... It was so easy in the first half that City get in a rut of 1-0, we'll just keep the ball.
Yeah.
And they're leaving the cell open. They left the cell open at Forest. Mm-hmm. I mean, Nottingham Forest, a team struggling that will fight tooth and nail to stay in the Premier League. A team that's fighting RB Leipzig with Bayern Munich at the top of the Bundesliga. You're not going to get away with those things. You're just not. And there's something missing at the moment. There's something not right. We've already seen the Cancelo situation where a terrific player was sort of ousted. De Bruyne had lost some form and was dropped this season. He wasn't available today. Haaland's frustrations, and people will point to the goals, right? That's fair enough. But there is still an awful lot of big games he's getting frustrated in. There's just something not as fluid about this Manchester City side. To me, they don't look like they're going to beat teams by 4 or 5 goals.
But then Pep Guardiola, speaking afterwards, says, hey, this is a good team. You can't expect us to come here and beat Leipzig by 4 or 5 goals?
Oh, maybe not by 4 or 5 goals, but if you're dominating the possession in the manner in which you were in the first half, that you would at least be creating more opportunities, that you are that strong of a team and have been that strong of a team to be able to find spaces and to be able to create chances against a Leipzig team that I would say this. Ahead of the game, I think Marco Rosa would have taken a 1-1 draw. I think he would have taken it and will decide it in the second leg. The way the game played out, I think Marco Rosa, after seeing what happened in the second half, when they were willing to actually challenge Manchester City, he's probably thinking, you know, maybe, just maybe, we could have challenged Manchester City earlier. Maybe we should not have been as tentative, conservative, reactive, perhaps even overly respectful of Manchester City. Because when Leipzig came out in the second half and actually were willing to pressure Manchester City, they created opportunities. They created chances. And Hiring, who came on as a sub, and I thought that was a very good move from Marco Rosa, you actually push Manchester City. He had an opportunity 1v1 against Ederson. So I think overall you take it if you are Leipzig, but just slightly disappointed that you didn't give yourself a better opportunity because of what we're saying, that Manchester City are vulnerable.
Yeah, and that's it. It's like, okay, obviously, what you can't judge in one game. But if you were to sit someone in front of yesterday's match and today's game, and you would tell them that Manchester City are favourites to win the Champions League ahead of Real Madrid, they'd think you'd be crazy.
Well, they're the bookies' favourites again, but the last 2 years, I think, on the show, I've said they have found spectacular ways in this competition of shooting themselves in the foot.
Oh, they completely outplayed Real Madrid last year.
And the year before, it was at Lyon or whoever it was, I think it was whatever. But they're finding a way this season to keep teams in the game. And they've done it here today. Because when you talk about RB Leipzig being a good team, they weren't a good team in the first half. Good teams can play more than 2 passes.
Yeah.
Schlager and Leimer couldn't pass the ball in the first half. Forsberg, who's one of the best players, never got a touch. Szoboszlai's been a great player for them, never got a touch. Timo Werner on the fringes again. They just never got any passing. They couldn't keep the ball. And that's why I think they were really there for the taking. But Man City are not putting teams away. And I have no confidence in this Man City team to not do what they've done every year in the Champions League.
Yeah.
Is blow a brilliant position and be scratching their heads and going, how are we out of this competition again? I'm not saying it's going to be in this leg, but I'm damn... If you said to me now, what's more likely, them getting into the final or them blowing a 2-legged game against a team they've dominated, I would go with the blowing the 2-legged game.
You said yesterday that City were your favourites.
Yeah, I believe it was a question in extra time, in which, if I remember correctly, Craig was trying to find the answer up there somewhere in the lights.
He was searching it.
Well, can you point to me where the place is? Yeah.
Same place Erling Haaland was looking to do.
May I redact my answer?
You can do whatever you want, Erling.
May I revise my answer? Look, based on the evidence we saw today, it's really difficult to trust Manchester City. They're very vulnerable, and I don't know that they have actually internalized that they've actually understood that they are vulnerable.
Right. Because
they're playing with an air of arrogance that is not justified given the performances and given the results. The fact that they just drew against Nottingham Forest in the same type of match, in the same type of game, that you don't see a different type of attitude for this group. And while Pep Guardiola may say, well, look, we're playing against Leipzig. This is a good team. German teams never quit. It's the personality of this country. Okay, so be it. Fair enough. But you are Manchester City. Leipzig are not favorites to win this competition. You are, because of the talent that you have available. I don't think you can trust this team right now. It may get better, but right now, not so much.
But look what they do with Benzema. Yep. I mean, Benzema, he wasn't fully fit, but he floats around. He drops deep. And Real Madrid pass it around, particularly in the midfield. Modric and Camavinga. Yesterday, who was the other midfielder yesterday?
Valverde.
And Valverde. They whip it around and then it goes out to Vinicius and it comes back in. And then all of a sudden, it's not just passing for the sake of it, which I kind of feel sometimes where we are with Man City, is passing for, this is lovely, isn't it? Yeah. Let's go back to the keeper, back to Akanji, back out there. Real Madrid are a much more effective team at passing it and then waiting for the moment, then bang. 2-3 passes, they're in. Benzema just appears from off one of the wider positions and they've got like a 3-on-2. they're not as possessive as Man City, but they play a passing game, Real Madrid, but they're a damn sight more threatening in the final third.
Yeah.
A lot more threatening. And City need to be more threatening in that final third.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.